Sarah Martinez stared at the $10 bill in her wallet, knowing it was all she had left until her next paycheck arrived in 5 days. The single mother of two had been struggling ever since losing her job at the local factory 3 months ago. Her new position at the grocery store paid minimum wage, barely enough to cover rent, utilities, and food for her children. The rain pounded against the windshield of her old Honda as she sat in the parking lot of Murphy's Diner, a small roadside restaurant where she had just finished her evening shift. Her back ached from standing for 8 hours, restocking shelves and helping customers. The restaurant was her second job, something she took on weekends to make ends meet. As Sarah prepared to drive home, she noticed a commotion near the gas station next door. A large man in leather clothing was standing beside a motorcycle, clearly frustrated. He was talking on his phone, gesturing wildly with his free hand. Rain soaked through his jacket and his bike appeared to be having mechanical problems. Sarah watched for a moment, debating whether to get involved. She had always been the type of person to help others, even when she could barely help herself. Her grandmother had raised her with the belief that kindness always came back around, even in the darkest times. But with only $10 to her name and 2 children waiting at home, getting involved seemed risky. The man ended his phone call and kicked his motorcycle tire in frustration. Sarah could see he was stranded, possibly without money for repairs or a tow truck. The nearest auto shop was 20 miles away, and it was already past 9 in the evening. Most businesses would be closed by now. Something in the man's posture reminded Sarah of her own father, who had passed away when she was 16. Her dad had been a mechanic and often helped stranded motorists, never asking for payment. He always said that helping someone in need was never a waste, no matter how little you had to give. Sarah took a deep breath and stepped out of her car. The rain immediately soaked through her thin work uniform as she walked toward the stranger. He was older than she had initially thought, probably in his 50s with graying hair and tired eyes. His leather jacket had patches and pins that suggested he was part of a motorcycle club. "Excuse me," Sarah called out over the sound of the rain. "Are you having trouble with your bike?" The man looked surprised that someone had approached him. "Yeah, she just died on me about an hour ago. Won't start. And I think it might be the battery or maybe something electrical. I called my buddy, but he's 3 hours away and I don't have enough cash for a tow truck tonight." Sarah studied the man's face and saw genuine worry there. He didn't look dangerous, just frustrated and tired. "What's your name?" she asked. "Tommy," he replied. "Tommy Rodriguez. I was heading home to Phoenix after visiting my sister in Tucson." "Been on the road all day," Sarah nodded. "I'm Sarah. I don't know much about motorcycles, but maybe we can figure something out. How much would a tow truck cost?" Tommy ran his hand through his wet hair. "The guy I called said it would be about $60 to tow it to the nearest shop, but they're closed until Monday. I've got about $30 on me, but that's supposed to last me until I get home." Sarah felt her heart sink. $60 was far more than she could help with. But looking at Tommy's situation, she realized that even her small amount might make a difference. Sometimes people just needed to know that someone cared enough to try. "Listen, I don't have much, but I've got $10. I know it's not enough for the full tow, but maybe it could help with gas for your friend to come get you. Or food while you wait," Sarah said, pulling out her wallet. Tommy's eyes widened. "I can't take your money. You look like you need it more than I do." Sarah smiled despite the rain streaming down her face. "My grandmother always told me that when you help someone else, you're really helping yourself. I may not have much, but I have a warm car and a home to go to tonight. You're stuck out here in the rain." She held out the $10 bill. "Please take it. Maybe it won't solve everything, but it might help a little." Tommy stared at the money for a long moment, then at Sarah's determined face. "You're sure about this? This could be your grocery money or gas money." "I'm sure," Sarah said firmly. "We all need help sometimes." Reluctantly, Tommy accepted the money. "I don't know what to say. This is incredibly kind of you. Most people would just drive by." "What goes around comes around," Sarah replied. "That's what my grandmother always said." Tommy carefully folded the bill and put it in his wallet. "What's your full name? I'd like to pay you back when I get home." "Sarah Martinez. But don't worry about paying me back. Just help someone else when you get the chance." "Sarah Martinez," Tommy repeated as if committing it to memory. "I won't forget this." As Sarah walked back to her car, she felt a strange sense of peace despite giving away her last $10. The rain was still falling, and she still faced the same financial struggles that had plagued her for months. But somehow helping Tommy had reminded her that there were still good things in the world worth fighting for. Tommy watched her drive away, then pulled out his phone to make another call. This time, he wasn't calling for help with his motorcycle. He was calling his motorcycle club brothers, men who had stood by each other through thick and thin for over 20 years. What Sarah didn't know was that Tommy Rodriguez wasn't just any biker. He was the president of the Desert Thunder Motorcycle Club, and his brothers would move heaven and earth to help him. As Sarah drove through the rain toward her small apartment, she had no idea that her simple act of kindness was about to change her life in ways she never could have imagined. Sometimes the smallest gestures create the biggest waves, and Sarah's $10 was about to become something much more powerful than money. The next morning, Sarah woke up to the sound of her 8-year-old daughter Emma shaking her shoulder. "Mom, there's no cereal," Emma whispered, trying not to wake her younger brother Miguel, who was still sleeping in the bed they shared in their one-bedroom apartment. Sarah rubbed her eyes and checked the clock. It was 6 in the morning, and she didn't have to work at the grocery store until 10. She had been hoping to sleep in, but Emma was right about the cereal. The cupboards were nearly empty, and her next paycheck wouldn't come until Thursday. "We'll figure something out, sweetheart," Sarah said, pulling Emma close for a hug. "Maybe we can make pancakes with the flour we have left." As Sarah got up to check the kitchen, she couldn't help but think about Tommy and wonder if he had made it home safely. She hoped her $10 had helped, even if it was just for a cup of coffee while he waited for help. The rain had stopped during the night, which was something at least. The kitchen revealed what Sarah already knew. They were down to the basics: a little flour, some eggs that were close to expiring, and a small amount of milk. She could make pancakes for breakfast, but lunch and dinner would be challenging. She had $3 in change scattered around the apartment, but that wouldn't go far at the grocery store where she worked. Sarah started mixing pancake batter while Emma sat at their small kitchen table, working on homework she hadn't finished the night before. Miguel, now 5 years old, wandered into the kitchen rubbing his eyes and asking for cartoons. "Can we watch TV while we eat?" Miguel asked, his dark hair sticking up in all directions. "Sure, baby," Sarah said, flipping the first pancake. "But keep it low so we don't wake the neighbors." As the family ate their simple breakfast, Sarah tried to stay positive. She had been through tough times before and always found a way to make things work. Her children didn't know how close they were to having nothing, and Sarah intended to keep it that way. They deserved to feel safe and secure even when she was falling apart inside. Around 9:30, Sarah was getting ready for work when she heard the distant rumble of motorcycle engines. The sound grew louder and louder until it seemed like dozens of bikes were approaching their apartment complex. Sarah looked out the window but couldn't see much from their second-floor unit. "Mom, what's that noise?" Emma asked, looking up from her book. "Probably just some motorcycles passing through," Sarah replied, though the sound was unlike anything she had heard before. It sounded like an entire convoy was heading their way. The rumbling stopped suddenly, replaced by the sound of multiple car doors slamming and voices calling out. Sarah's curiosity got the better of her, and she walked to the window that faced the parking lot. What she saw made her gasp. The entire parking lot of their apartment complex was filled with motorcycles. Not just a few, but what looked like hundreds of them. Men and women in leather jackets were climbing off their bikes, and many were carrying bags and boxes. At the center of it all stood Tommy Rodriguez, the man she had helped the night before. Sarah's heart began racing. Had she made a terrible mistake? Was this some kind of gang that was now targeting her and her children? She quickly moved away from the window and checked that her door was locked. "Mom, you look scared," Emma said, setting down her book. "What's wrong?" Before Sarah could answer, there was a gentle knock at her door. Then another. Sarah's hands trembled as she approached the door and looked through the peephole. Tommy stood there alone, holding what appeared to be an envelope. "Sarah," he called out softly. "It's Tommy from last night. I know this probably looks crazy, but I just want to talk for a minute." Sarah's mind raced. Should she open the door? Should she call the police? But something in Tommy's voice seemed genuine, just like it had the night before. Against her better judgment, she opened the door but kept the chain latch attached. I know you're probably scared, Tommy said, holding up his hands to show he meant no harm. But I brought some friends who wanted to meet the woman who helped me last night. This is too much, Sarah said through the crack in the door. I just gave you $10. It was nothing special. Tommy smiled, and Sarah could see the same tired but kind eyes she had noticed the night before. To you it might have been just $10. But to me it was everything. You see, I called my club brothers last night after you left. These are the men and women I've ridden with for over 20 years. We're not a gang, Sarah. We're a family. And when I told them what you did giving your last money to a complete stranger, they insisted on coming here. Sarah loosened her grip on the door chain. What do they want? They want to thank you, Tommy said. And they want to help you the same way you helped me. I did some asking around this morning. I know you're struggling, working 2 jobs, raising 2 kids on your own. My club brothers, we take care of our own. And after what you did last night, you're family now. Emma had crept up behind Sarah and was listening to every word. Mom, there are so many motorcycles outside. It looks like a parade. Tommy heard her and chuckled. Is that your daughter? I'd love to meet her. Sarah looked down at Emma's curious face, then at Miguel, who had joined them at the door. Her children looked excited rather than afraid. Maybe she was overthinking this situation. Okay, Sarah said, finally removing the chain and opening the door fully. But I don't understand what's happening. Tommy's smile widened. You're about to find out that kindness really does come back around, just like your grandmother taught you. As Sarah stepped onto her small balcony with Tommy, she could see the full scope of what had gathered in her parking lot. Nearly 300 motorcycles were parked in organized rows, their riders standing beside them. Some held grocery bags, others had envelopes, and a few were carrying what looked like furniture and appliances. Sarah Martinez, Tommy called out to the crowd below. This is the woman I told you about. A cheer went up from the crowd that made Sarah's eyes fill with tears. These people, these strangers, were cheering for her, for helping someone she had never met with money she couldn't afford to give. We heard what you did, called out a woman with silver hair tied back in a bandana. And we want you to know that your kindness inspired all of us. Sarah felt overwhelmed and confused, but also touched in a way she hadn't expected. I don't understand. It was just $10. It was never about the money, Tommy said quietly. It was about seeing someone in need and choosing to help, even when helping meant sacrifice. That's the kind of person the world needs more of. Over the next hour, Sarah watched in amazement as the motorcycle club members organized themselves like a well-coordinated team. Some went to local grocery stores and returned with enough food to fill her entire kitchen. Others brought household items, children's clothing, and school supplies. A few members who worked in various trades offered their services for free. Emma and Miguel had never seen anything like it. They sat on the balcony steps, watching wide-eyed as strangers carried bag after bag up to their apartment. The children whispered to each other about which motorcycle they liked best and whether all the riders were as nice as Tommy seemed to be. Mom, is this really happening? Emma asked, tugging on Sarah's work uniform sleeve. I think so, sweetheart, Sarah replied, still trying to process everything. Though I'm not entirely sure I believe it myself. A woman named Rosa, who appeared to be in her 40s with kind eyes and graying hair, approached Sarah. She introduced herself as Tommy's sister and explained that she was a nurse at the local hospital. Tommy called me this morning and told me what happened, Rosa said. He was so moved by your kindness that he couldn't stop talking about it. When he told the club, everyone wanted to help. This is too much, Sarah said, watching club members carry groceries into her kitchen. I can't accept all this. It was just $10. Rosa laughed gently. You keep saying that, but you don't understand. These people have been riding together for years. They've seen a lot of selfishness and cruelty in the world. When they heard about someone who would give their last money to a stranger, it reminded them why they formed this brotherhood in the first place. An older man with a gray beard walked over carrying a large envelope. He introduced himself as Frank, the club's treasurer, and explained that the club had taken up a collection. We heard you're working 2 jobs and still struggling, Frank said. Nobody should have to choose between helping others and feeding their children. This should help you get caught up on bills and maybe take a little pressure off. Sarah opened the envelope and gasped. Inside were hundreds of dollars in cash, far more than she made in a month at both her jobs combined. Her hands shook as she tried to count it. "I can't take this," she said, trying to hand the envelope back. "This is too much money." "Yes, you can," said a younger man who had just finished carrying groceries upstairs. "My name's Marcus. I'm a teacher and I've got 2 kids about the same age as yours. 6 months ago my wife lost her job, and we were in the same situation you're in now. The club helped us too, and now we're back on our feet." Sarah looked around at all the faces surrounding her. These weren't the dangerous bikers she had imagined from movies and television. These were teachers, nurses, mechanics, store owners, and parents. They were people who had decided that helping others was more important than their own comfort. Tommy walked over with 2 club members who introduced themselves as contractors. "Sarah, we noticed your front step is loose and your window doesn't close properly. If you'll let us, we'd like to fix those things for you. No charge, of course." "Why are you all doing this?" Sarah asked, feeling overwhelmed by the generosity. "I don't deserve all this attention." A woman named Janet, who owned a local bakery, stepped forward. "My grandmother used to say that angels don't always have wings. Sometimes they just have $10 and a willing heart. You were Tommy's angel last night, and now we want to be yours." Emma and Miguel had been quietly listening to everything, and Miguel suddenly stood up and walked over to Tommy. "Mr. Tommy," Miguel said in his small voice, "thank you for helping my mom. She works really hard, and sometimes she's sad when she thinks we're not looking." Sarah felt tears welling up in her eyes. She had tried so hard to hide her struggles from her children, but apparently, they had noticed more than she realized. Tommy knelt down to Miguel's level. "Your mom is a very special lady. She helped me when she didn't have to, and that tells me she raised you to be a good boy too." Meanwhile, club members continued bringing items into the apartment. Sarah's small kitchen was now fully stocked with food that would last for weeks. The refrigerator, which had been nearly empty that morning, was now packed with fresh vegetables, meat, dairy products, and treats for the children. A club member named David, who worked at an automotive shop, approached Sarah with another offer. "I heard your car might need some work. If you bring it by my shop this week, I'll take care of any maintenance it needs. Oil change, brakes, whatever it requires." Sarah was overwhelmed by the continuous offers of help. "I don't know how I'll ever pay everyone back," she said. "You don't pay it back," said Maria, a woman about Sarah's age who carried a toddler on her hip. "You pay it forward. When you're in a position to help someone else, you do it. That's how this works." By noon, the apartment looked completely different. The children's bedroom had new sheets and blankets. The living room had been cleaned and organized. The kitchen was stocked better than it had been in months. Even the bathroom had new towels and toiletries. But the most surprising change was in Sarah herself. For the first time in months, she felt hope. The constant worry about money and basic necessities had been lifted, at least temporarily. She could breathe again. As the club members began preparing to leave, Tommy pulled Sarah aside. "There's one more thing," he said. "I own a small automotive repair shop about 20 minutes from here. We could use someone to help with paperwork, customer service, things like that. The pay is better than what you're making at the grocery store, and the hours would be more regular. You'd be home with your kids in the evenings." Sarah stared at him. "Are you offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a chance," Tommy said. "You've got good instincts about people, and you're not afraid of hard work. Plus, my current office person is retiring next month. The timing is perfect." Sarah felt like she was dreaming. In less than 24 hours, her life had gone from desperate to hopeful, all because she had chosen to help a stranger with her last $10. "I don't know what to say," Sarah whispered. "Say you'll think about it," Tommy replied, "and say you'll keep being the kind of person who stops to help strangers in the rain." As the motorcycles began starting up for the journey home, Sarah stood on her balcony with Emma and Miguel, waving goodbye to people who had been strangers that morning but now felt like family. The rumble of 300 motorcycles pulling out of the parking lot was deafening, but to Sarah it sounded like hope. Sarah's first week at Desert Thunder Auto exceeded all her expectations. The work was interesting, the customers were generally pleasant, and Tommy created an environment where everyone felt valued. Betty stayed for the entire week to train Sarah, and by Friday, Sarah felt confident handling most situations on her own. The best part was the schedule. Sarah started work at 8 in the morning and finished at 5, which meant she could pick up Emma and Miguel from their after-school program and still have time to cook dinner and help with homework. For the first time in months, she felt like a real mother instead of someone who just paid the bills. On Friday afternoon, Tommy approached Sarah as she was organizing customer files. "How was your first week?" he asked. "Amazing," Sarah replied honestly. "I can't thank you enough for this opportunity." "You've earned it," Tommy said. Betty told me you picked up everything faster than anyone she's trained before. The customers like you too. Mrs. Rodriguez said you were the most helpful person she's dealt with in years. Sarah smiled. Mrs. Rodriguez was an elderly woman whose car needed frequent minor repairs. She had been worried about dealing with a new person, but Sarah had patiently explained everything and made sure she understood exactly what work was being done and why. "Speaking of which," Tommy continued, "Rosa called to remind you about the barbecue tomorrow. The kids are really excited to meet Emma and Miguel." Sarah had been looking forward to the barbecue all week. Emma and Miguel had been asking questions about the motorcycle club daily, fascinated by the idea of such a large group of people who chose to help strangers. Saturday afternoon, Sarah and her children arrived at Rosa's house to find the backyard filled with motorcycles, families, and the smell of grilling food. The club members had transformed the space into a festival-like atmosphere with games for children, music, and enough food to feed an army. Emma and Miguel were initially shy, staying close to Sarah's side. But within minutes, they were surrounded by friendly adults who genuinely seemed interested in getting to know them. A woman named Carol, who was a retired teacher, immediately connected with Emma over a book they had both read. A man named Joe, who had grandchildren the same age as Miguel, showed him how to safely examine a motorcycle up close. "Your children are wonderful," Rosa said to Sarah as they watched Emma and Miguel playing with other kids. "They're polite and curious, which tells me you're doing an excellent job raising them." Sarah felt proud but also emotional. For so long she had worried that working constantly was preventing her from being a good mother. Seeing Emma and Miguel interact confidently with new people reassured her that they were developing into kind, well-adjusted children despite their struggles. Throughout the afternoon, various club members approached Sarah with stories about times when they had needed help and received it from unexpected sources. She began to understand that helping others wasn't just something the club did occasionally. It was a core part of their identity. Frank, the treasurer who had given her the envelope of money, sat with Sarah during dinner and explained more about the club's philosophy. "Most people think motorcycle clubs are about rebellion or causing trouble," Frank said. "But for us, it's about freedom and family, freedom to help people without asking permission, and family that extends beyond blood relations." "How long have you all been doing this?" Sarah asked. "The club was formed 22 years ago," Frank replied. "Tommy's idea, actually. He had been helped by a group of bikers when he was young and broken down on the highway. Years later, when he had his own bike and some friends who rode, he decided to formalize the group around the idea of helping people." Sarah watched Tommy grilling hamburgers and joking with children, and she could see the satisfaction he got from bringing people together. This wasn't just a hobby for him, it was a calling. As the evening progressed, Sarah found herself relaxing in a way she hadn't in years. The combination of financial security, meaningful work, and genuine friendship was healing parts of her spirit that had been damaged by months of stress and worry. Maria, the woman with the toddler who had spoken to Sarah on that first day, sat beside her as they watched their children play together. "I was where you are about 3 years ago," Maria said. "Single mother, 2 jobs, never enough money. The club helped me get back on my feet, and now my kids have aunts and uncles. They never would have had otherwise." "It still doesn't feel real," Sarah admitted. "A week ago I was counting change to buy milk, and now I have a good job and all these new friends." "It's real," Maria said with a smile. "And you deserve it. Not because of what you did for Tommy, but because you're a good person who needed a break." As the barbecue wound down, club members began cleaning up with the same efficiency they had shown when helping Sarah. Everyone had a role, Everyone contributed, and the work was done quickly, because many hands made it light. Tommy approached Sarah as she was helping Rosa pack leftovers. "I hope this won't be the last time we see you and the kids at one of these gatherings," he said. "Are you kidding?" Sarah laughed. "Emma has already asked me 3 times when the next one is." As Sarah loaded Emma and Miguel into her car, both children were practically glowing with excitement. They chattered nonstop about the new friends they had made, the motorcycles they had seen, and the games they had played. "Mom," Emma said as they drove home, "these people are like our new family, aren't they?" Sarah thought about her answer carefully. "They're people who care about us, sweetheart, and caring about people is what makes a family." Miguel, who was fighting sleep in his car seat, mumbled, "I want to come back next time." "We will, baby," Sarah promised. That night, as Sarah tucked her children into bed, she reflected on how much their lives had changed. Emma and Miguel seemed happier and more secure than they had in months. They had new clothes, full stomachs, and the knowledge that there were adults in their lives who cared about their well-being. But the most important change was in Sarah herself. She had rediscovered hope and learned that there were still people in the world who believed in helping others without expecting anything in return. Her grandmother's lessons about kindness had been validated in the most spectacular way possible. As she prepared for bed, Sarah looked at the photo on her dresser of her grandmother, the woman who had raised her and taught her the values that had led her to help Tommy that rainy night. "Thank you, Abuela," she whispered. "You were right about everything." The $10 that had started this entire journey was long forgotten, replaced by something much more valuable. The knowledge that kindness was never wasted and that there were people in the world who would catch you when you fell. The following week passed like a wonderful dream Sarah was afraid to wake up from. She had called in sick to her weekend shift at Murphy's Diner, something she had never done before because she needed time to process everything that had happened. The money from the motorcycle club had allowed her to pay rent, catch up on utilities, and even buy Emma new shoes for school. On Tuesday morning, Sarah drove to Tommy's automotive repair shop for what she hoped would be a job interview. The shop was called Desert Thunder Auto, and it was larger than she had expected. Clean, well-organized, with several cars in various stages of repair, and a comfortable waiting area for customers. Tommy greeted her with the same warm smile she remembered from that rainy night. "Sarah, I was hoping you'd come by. Let me show you around and introduce you to the crew." The shop employed 6 mechanics, all of whom seemed to know about Sarah's situation. They were friendly but respectful, treating her like she belonged there rather than like a charity case. The office area was small but functional, with a desk, computer, phone system, and filing cabinets full of customer records. The job would involve answering phones, scheduling appointments, handling customer payments, and basic bookkeeping, Tommy explained. "It's not glamorous work, but it pays $18 an hour, which is more than double what you're making now." Sarah's heart skipped. $18 an hour would change everything for her family. She could quit the grocery store job and actually have time to spend with Emma and Miguel in the evenings. "When would I start?" she asked, trying not to sound too eager. "How about Monday?" Tommy said. "That gives you time to give proper notice at your other jobs." As Sarah toured the shop, she met Betty, the woman who was retiring after 15 years as the office manager. Betty was in her 60s with silver hair and a no-nonsense attitude, but Sarah could tell she was kind-hearted. "Tommy told me what you did for him," Betty said as she showed Sarah the computer system. "Takes a special person to help a stranger when they're barely getting by themselves. You'll fit in well here." Over the next hour, Betty walked Sarah through the daily routines, the customer database, and the appointment scheduling system. It seemed manageable, and Sarah had always been good with organization and dealing with people. "The customers become like family after a while," Betty explained. "Most of them have been coming here for years. Tommy treats everyone fair, and people appreciate that. You'll see the same faces again and again." As Sarah prepared to leave, Tommy handed her a Desert Thunder Auto shirt and a key to the building. "These are yours if you want them," he said. "The job comes with health insurance for you and the kids, 2 weeks paid vacation, and we close early on Fridays during the summer." Sarah felt tears forming in her eyes again. Health insurance alone would save her hundreds of dollars every month. "Tommy, I don't know how to thank you." "Just be yourself," he replied. "That's all any of us can do." That evening, Sarah sat at her kitchen table with Emma and Miguel, eating dinner from groceries the motorcycle club had provided. She told them about the job offer and what it would mean for their family. "Does this mean you won't be so tired all the time?" Emma asked. Sarah realized her 8-year-old daughter had been paying attention to more than she thought. "Yes, sweetheart. It means I'll be home for dinner every night, and we won't have to worry so much about money." Miguel, who was playing with a small toy motorcycle that one of the club members had given him, looked up from his plate. "Are we rich now?" Sarah laughed. "We're not rich, baby, but we're going to be okay." On Friday, Sarah worked her last shift at the grocery store. Her supervisor, Mrs. Chen, was sorry to see her go but happy that Sarah had found a better opportunity. "You've been one of our most reliable employees," Mrs. Chen said. "If things don't work out at the new job, you always have a place here." Sarah appreciated the kindness but knew she wouldn't be coming back. For the first time in months, she was moving forward instead of just surviving. The weekend was different too. Instead of working at Murphy's Diner, Sarah spent Saturday at the park with Emma and Miguel. They had a picnic with sandwiches made from the deli meat the bikers had brought, and the children played on the playground while Sarah actually relaxed for once. "Mom, you look happy," Emma observed as they sat on a bench watching Miguel climb on the jungle gym. "I am happy," Sarah replied, realizing it was true. "For the first time in a long time, I really am." Sunday evening, Sarah received a phone call from Rosa, Tommy's sister. Rosa wanted to check on how Sarah was adjusting and to invite her and the children to a barbecue the motorcycle club was hosting the following weekend. "It's our monthly family gathering," Rosa explained. "Spouses, kids, everyone comes. The children would love it, and you'd get to meet more of the club family." Sarah found herself saying yes, something she wouldn't have imagined a week earlier. The idea of socializing had seemed like a luxury she couldn't afford when she was working 2 jobs and barely keeping her head above water. As Sarah tucked Emma and Miguel into bed Sunday night, she reflected on how much had changed since that rainy evening when she made the decision to help Tommy. Her grandmother's words about kindness coming back around had proven true in ways Sarah never could have imagined. "Mom," Emma said as Sarah kissed her goodnight, "I'm glad you helped that man with his motorcycle." "Me too, sweetheart," Sarah replied. "Me too." Looking around the children's bedroom, with its new blankets and the stuffed animals the club members had brought, Sarah felt a peace she hadn't experienced in years. Tomorrow she would start a new job, one that would allow her to provide properly for her children while still having time to be their mother. As she turned off the lights and headed to her own room, Sarah whispered a thank you to her grandmother, whose lessons about kindness had guided her to help a stranger and changed her family's life forever. She had learned that sometimes the smallest acts of compassion create the biggest miracles, and that there were still good people in the world who believed in helping others. The $10 she had given Tommy had returned to her multiplied many times over. But more importantly, it had restored her faith in humanity and shown her children that kindness was always the right choice, even when it was difficult. 6 months later, Sarah stood behind the counter at Desert Thunder Auto, confidently handling the morning rush of customers dropping off their vehicles for service. She had become an integral part of the shop's operation, and Tommy often joked that he couldn't remember how they had managed without her. Emma and Miguel had both flourished since that life-changing day. Emma's grades had improved dramatically once Sarah was able to help with homework in the evenings, and Miguel had joined a little league team sponsored by several club members. Both children had gained confidence and security that showed in everything they did. The motorcycle club had become an extended family in ways Sarah never could have imagined. Rosa had become like a sister to her, someone she called when she needed advice or just wanted to talk. Frank helped Emma with math homework when Sarah struggled with the more advanced problems. Carol had become Miguel's unofficial reading tutor, helping him with books that challenged his growing vocabulary. On this particular morning, Sarah noticed a woman standing in the parking lot looking confused and frustrated. Through the window, she could see that the woman's car was steaming, clearly overheated, and the woman was holding a crying baby while trying to manage 2 toddlers. Sarah remembered another rainy night and another stranded stranger. Without hesitation, she asked Tommy if she could step outside for a moment. "Car trouble?" Sarah asked, approaching the woman with a gentle smile. The woman looked embarrassed. "I think it overheated. I was trying to get to my job interview, but now I'm going to be late and I don't have money for a tow truck. I just moved here from out of state and I don't know anyone who could help. Sarah looked at the woman's worn clothes, the anxiety in her eyes, and the way she held her children protectively. She saw herself from 6 months ago, desperate, alone, and trying to hold everything together. "Let me get one of our mechanics to take a look," Sarah said. "Maybe it's something simple." "I can't afford much," the woman said quickly. "I'm supposed to start work tomorrow if I get this job, but without a car." "Don't worry about that right now," Sarah replied. "Let's just see what we're dealing with." Sarah called Tommy over, and within minutes he had diagnosed the problem as a burst radiator hose, an inexpensive repair that could be done in less than an hour. But when the woman heard even that small cost, her face fell. "I have $23, she said quietly. "That's all I have until I get this job." Sarah looked at Tommy, who was already reaching for his wallet, but she stopped him. This was her moment to pay forward what had been given to her. "What's your name?" Sarah asked the woman. "Jennifer. Jennifer Walsh. These are my kids, Katie, Bobby, and baby Lisa. Jennifer, my name is Sarah Martinez. 6 months ago, I was in almost exactly the same situation you're in now. Someone helped me when I couldn't help myself, and it changed everything for me and my children." Sarah went into the office and returned, with $60 from her own purse, money she could afford to give because of the stable job and security the motorcycle club had provided. "This should cover the repair and leave you with enough for gas to get to your interview," Sarah said, placing the money in Jennifer's hand. Jennifer stared at the money in disbelief. "I can't take this. You don't even know me." "That's exactly why you should take it," Sarah replied. "Kindness doesn't require knowing someone. It just requires recognizing that we all need help sometimes." Tommy had been watching the entire interaction with a knowing smile. "Sarah, why don't you call Rosa? I bet she could watch Jennifer's kids during the job interview." Within an hour, Jennifer's car was repaired, Rosa had arrived to babysit, and Jennifer was on her way to what she hoped would be a new beginning. Before she left, she hugged Sarah tightly. "I promise I'll pay you back," Jennifer whispered. "Pay it forward," Sarah replied, echoing the words that had been said to her months earlier. "When you're in a position to help someone else, that's how you pay me back." That evening, Sarah told Emma and Miguel about helping Jennifer. The children listened intently, understanding instinctively that their mother had done something important. "Is that lady going to get help from Mr. Tommy's friends too?" Miguel asked. "Maybe," Sarah said. "If she needs it, and I think she might." Emma, now 9 years old and wise beyond her years, nodded seriously. "It's like a circle, isn't it? Someone helps someone who helps someone else who helps someone else." "Exactly," Sarah said, amazed at her daughter's insight. "It's like throwing a stone in a pond. The ripples keep spreading out." The next week, Jennifer called to let Sarah know she had gotten the job and to ask if there was anything she could do to help at the auto shop in return. Tommy, always ready to help someone rebuild their life, offered her part-time work in the evenings, cleaning and organizing the shop. Within a month, Jennifer had become part of the extended Desert Thunder family. Her children played with Emma and Miguel at club gatherings, and she had found the same sense of community and support that had saved Sarah. On a Saturday evening, 6 months after helping Jennifer, Sarah sat on her apartment balcony, the same balcony where she had first seen 300 motorcycles arrive to change her life. But now the apartment was different. The furniture was newer. The refrigerator was always full, and most importantly, the feeling of desperation had been replaced by contentment and hope. Emma and Miguel were inside doing homework with help from Rosa, who had stopped by after her nursing shift. The sounds of their laughter drifted out through the open windows, a soundtrack of security that Sarah had never taken for granted since that difficult time. Sarah's phone buzzed with a text message from Jennifer. "Helped a stranded family today with groceries and gas money. The circle continues. Thank you for teaching me how." Sarah smiled and showed the message to Tommy, who had stopped by to drop off some paperwork and stayed for dinner, as he often did. The gruff biker had become like a father figure to Emma and Miguel, and his presence in their lives provided stability that went beyond financial security. "You know what the best part is?" Tommy said, reading the message. "It's not just that Jennifer helped someone, it's that she understood why it mattered." "My grandmother always said that kindness was contagious," Sarah replied. "I never really understood what she meant until now." As the sun set over their small apartment complex, Sarah reflected on the journey that had started with her last $10 on a rainy night. She had given away money she couldn't afford to lose and had received back everything she needed, not just financial security, but community, friendship, and the knowledge that there were good people in the world who would help a stranger without expecting anything in return. Emma appeared on the balcony with a book in her hand. "Mom, can you help me with this reading assignment?" "It's about heroes. What kind of heroes?" Sarah asked, making room for her daughter beside her. "Everyday heroes," Emma replied. "People who do good things even when it's hard." Sarah hugged her daughter close, thinking about Tommy, Rosa, Frank, and all the other club members who had chosen to help a struggling single mother because she had shown kindness to one of their own. She thought about Jennifer, who was now passing that kindness along to others, and about all the people she would never know who had been touched by the ripple effects of one small act of compassion. "I think I can help you with that assignment," Sarah said softly. "I know quite a few everyday heroes." As they sat together in the gathering darkness, Sarah Martinez knew with absolute certainty that her grandmother had been right about everything. Kindness did come back around, often in ways more wonderful than anyone could imagine, and sometimes changing the world was as simple as giving your last $10 to a stranger who needed help.